Like pretty much everybody else, while watching the GTA 6 trailer, I had one thought.
What you doing up there?
I cannot wait to play this. But especially as a PC gamer, I know that I'm going to have to wait a while. So I'm sure myself and like many others, you may be wondering, should I go back and replay an older Grand Theft Auto game? And if I did, what kind of performance could I get on modern hardware? So let's take the top of the line GPU, the 5090, and pit it against every 3D modern Grand Theft Auto game and just see what's worth replaying and what kind of performance can we actually get. Starting off with Grand Theft Auto 3, which came out over 20 years ago in 2001. Naturally, we might run into a bit of issues. Now, thankfully, there is a very, very lively assortment of mods that have been uploaded over the years and are still really, really great. And I did actually have to use this fixer mod, which is the #1 mod, to get Grand Theft Auto 3 to play nice at both 16:9 and at 4K. Now, older games like this weren't really meant to be run at high frame rates, so a lot of the things that actually make the game work tend to break when you start going into super high FPS territory. I did run into some issues with both the physics as well as some of the assets of the game, and one really weird bug where I actually couldn't reverse my car. The game does have a built-in frame rate limiter that actually sets the FPS to just over 100, which is still a very high FPS. And with that limiter in place, you can get a high FPS experience, of course, with a 5090, as well as actually not breaking anything. But with that limiter off, we were getting close to 1000 FPS here at 4K. Obviously, way more than you would ever need in a game like this, and not worth it for everything breaking in-game, but certainly pretty interesting. Currently, these old PC ports are actually no longer available directly from the Steam store. You can still get them from key shops for a pretty decent price, but there are now remastered editions of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. Now, these ports have been widely regarded as being pretty terrible, but I won't spend too much time on that for a few reasons. First of all, it may be the only way that some people can actually play the game on PC. And secondly, they do actually add some things that I am appreciative for. Things such as actual settings, graphic settings, video settings. And I do like the addition of the weapon wheel, both for the radio stations and for weapons. And with this port, we're getting right around 200 FPS out in the open world. And really, when you think about it, there are, as I've shown, tons of issues with playing these older games on modern hardware anyways. To be honest, my real issue is just that it seems like a missed opportunity to do something really special with these series of really important games, both in the broader gaming landscape and history, as well as in a lot of people's memories. Next up, we have Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now, luckily for Vice City, I actually did not have to install any sort of mod to get this to work correctly. All I had to do was come into the settings and tweak some things, and it worked 16:9, 4K, no problem. There were still some issues with that frame limiter option turned off. It almost seemed like at this high FPS, getting, around 700 to 800, somewhere in that range, it's like I had super strength with how many frames I was rendering, so my character was able to kind of push cars around and damage them all crazy. Also had that same strange issue where I couldn't reverse any of the cars, and there were also a few little graphical effects and weirdness that I did notice. So this is definitely another game that if you wanted to play it on modern hardware, you certainly could and get a real high FPS, but you are going to experience some of those bugs, and if you wanted to have a more reliable normal experience, you would have to put in some sort of frame rate cap. Now, strangely, when compared to Grand Theft Auto 3 that had a higher frame rate cap with that frame rate limiter on, this one drops us all the way down to 30 FPS. So I would actually recommend using some outside software like RTX or something like that to actually cap the frame rate and maybe cap it to like 120, and that way you still get a high FPS, but you're not really, you're not giving up that the stability that you're doing without it capped at anything. So 120 seems to be a good kind of place where I can kind of play reliably, no weirdness going on, and still get, really solid experience. And as far as the remastered edition, it actually does look pretty impressive with the improved lighting, I will say. And we're averaging right around 200 plus FPS, a bit above 200, and with all of those, nice quality of life features. So actually pretty nice port here, and still, of course, 5090, really great performance. Now, while Grand Theft Auto San Andreas did work without the need of any mods, and I was able to run at a pretty high FPS, when I started playing, I wasn't getting the performance that I was really expecting at around 150 FPS. So I looked for a mod, and there was a very similar mod to the Grand Theft Auto 3 one. I went ahead and installed it, and then we did go right back to that 500 FPS territory that we were in in both Vice City and Grand Theft Auto 3. This game also did not really suffer from any weird visual or gameplay effects from the super high FPS. I was even able to effectively reverse my car for the first time without using a frame limiter. So definitely a, real solid experience here on OG San Andreas. As far as the remastered edition, of course, we do have all the benefits, menus, options, things like that. But I did notice some weirdness, specifically in that starting area. It was like incredibly orange. But as far as the FPS goes, we were actually getting really, really high FPS, all the way up into the 300s at times. But all of these remasters, they have one problem in common, and that is the 1% lows and the frame times. Even though the FPS itself is high, it feels like a pretty choppy experience. So even these remasters, unfortunately, they probably would be, even though they can run high frame rates, it doesn't break the game engine the same way as the old games. They would be better suited to actually have a frame limit in order to, get rid of at least some of the stuttering. For Grand Theft Auto 4, we are back to having some pretty major problems with the game engine breaking with the high FPS, specifically in indoor areas. Indoor areas gives us close to 600 FPS, which, pretty much breaks all animations. Now, as soon as we step outdoors, we get around 170 FPS to 200 FPS. And again, this is maxed out 4K settings, as is the case with every game. Our utilization for our GPU is actually really low. So I did look into a mod option to try to see if I could fix that, but the mod was now actually pretty involved to actually try to correct this, so I decided against it. But still, around 160, 170 to 200 FPS depending on the scenes, still really solid performance. And GTA 4 is a phenomenal game, and I do think it's a slightly less like sandbox open world go crazy type game when compared to Grand Theft Auto 5 and Vice City, but still a game that I had a ton of fun in. And if you've only played it on console, low FPS, it's certainly a worth your time to check it out on PC. And moving up to Grand Theft Auto 5, of course, here on the Legacy Edition, so this is not the Enhanced Edition, although there's not really a great reason not to play the Enhanced Edition. We are getting, native 4K here using 4 times MSAA and getting, real solid 160 FPS average. And, this game, of course, I don't know if it's the one people are really going to want to replay leading up to Grand Theft Auto 6. Probably more likely to play something like Vice City, but certainly, on the 5090, you can get really strong performance on this title. And last and most recent, of course, Grand Theft Auto 5 Enhanced using all of our max ray tracing features. And over here on the same scene, and now we're getting, rather than 160, you're getting closer to 130 on our average here. Still a really solid experience. And of course, you do have all those options to enable DLSS and things like that. But max settings, 4K, 5090, absolutely totally more than enough for this game. So no major surprise, but the 5090 is overkill for all of these older Grand Theft Auto games. I've said, and I really believe that having a PC and advanced hardware, one of the best things is that you can take that newer hardware and go play older games. You can go play older games at higher frame rates, at higher resolutions, implement mods, and have all of these different experiences. And you don't have to wait on developers to go in and, give you these things. You can just go and take them through the different modding communities and, getting newer hardware. So I am curious to know, if you've made it this far, what Grand Theft Auto, if any, are you looking forward to replaying ahead of Grand Theft Auto 6? Are you going to replay Vice City to kind of get the feeling of, the same sort of setting? Or has it been a while since you've gone through Grand Theft Auto 5 and you want to go through that? Either way, let me know, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for all the support and for watching.